Hi, I'm Julia Hankins, and I work with yoga teachers to help them feel more confident so that they can teach children and change the world through yoga. And today I'm going to be talking all about planning again, because for the whole of February, that's my theme. And I sit here the day before Valentine's Day and think about love, and then you might not think that that goes really well with planning, especially as it's something that I used to really hate. And so, the session today is going to be all about how we can fall in love with the process of planning. And so, yeah, as it's Valentine's Day tomorrow, I've been thinking about that and thinking about how one of my love languages is quality time. I don't actually celebrate Valentine's Day, but I do. Quality time is my biggest love language, and so how I spend my time is really important to me. So spending lots of hours writing plans is not how I want to spend my time generally. And for me to enjoy the process, I have to make the process of planning feel like quality time for me. And so I thought today I would just share with you how I do that. So, yeah, I used to be a teacher. I used to be a class teacher, and I used to do a lot of planning. And actually, the paperwork that's involved in schools is one of the things that led to my anxiety disorder and my feelings of overwhelm when I had my children, and part of the reason why I left education. As a class teacher, actually. And so it feels quite odd for me to be now talking about how you can love your planning when it's something that I used to really struggle with. And indeed, when I started teaching yoga, my own yoga lessons, I spent a lot, I carried a lot of that baggage with me, and I spent a lot of time planning and finding it a bit miserable. But now I have a process in place that I really love, and I'm going to share that with you. So, being self employed and having your own yoga business, one of the main benefits of that is that you get to decide how you spend your time, and you get to decide how you do things and the processes and what works for you. You get to create this life that really works for you. And so, last week I shared with you the three main plans that I do: long term, medium, and short term. Check out the freebie for that if you haven't already, and check out the video or the blog on that, where I share with you those three main types of planning and how well when I use them. And today I'm going to be talking to you about my medium term planning, because that's the one I use the most frequently. And so, um, planning is unavoidable. It's what makes your lessons really good, because you're thinking through what you've already done and where you can take the children to next. But it doesn't have to be miserable. It doesn't have to be boring, and it doesn't have to be something that you just squeeze in. And so, yeah, I, as a neurodivergent person, have managed to trick my brain into thinking that I love planning, even though it's something that doesn't feel natural to me. And I've done this by pairing it with other things that I do enjoy. This is a really common psychological trick. For those of you that don't know, I've got a background in psychology. I have a master's in mental health and wellbeing and education, and I'm really interested in how our brains work and how we can use psychology to really make the best of our lives, really. And so pairing something that you don't love with something that you do love can really make things quite powerful. And so this basically, this whole video is all about that. So firstly, I batch my plans, which means that I do them all in one go, at not usually at the beginning of the term, or sometimes at the end of a term. Actually, probably it's more half term. And so it's half term now, which means that I will be doing my planning for next half term just at the either at the end of the half term holiday or at the beginning of the term, depending on how my calendar looks for then. So yeah, I pick a day and I put all of my planning together. I batch it together and I prioritize it in my calendar. So I draw a little circle around it in my calendar, in my diary. This is my planning day. And prioritizing it in that way is really important for me. I don't know whether it is for you. I guess most people are all right with this, but I've learned that actually I will forget to do things. And so putting it in my calendar and having it there and having a system in place is really what helps me to be organized. A actually lesser known secret about me is that I am really organized, because if I wasn't so organized, I'd be really disorganized. I'm either like one way or the other. Either everything's really neat in boxes or it's chaos everywhere. And so systems in place. And so this is the same for planning. So I block my day, I prioritize a day that's going to be my planning day, and I do it all in the same time. And so how long you need will really depend on how many classes you've got for different age groups, how new you are in your teaching career, whether you've got some new stuff that you're weaving in, how confident you feel, how many sessions you've already had with that group, and also your energy. There's so many different things. So it's a bit of an art in kind of figuring out how much time you need. But I found that when I batch it and I prioritize it, that really means that I get it done, and it doesn't squeeze into other times of the day. Like, I'm not suddenly thinking, oh, I haven't planned my lesson, I've got to quickly go and get that done before tomorrow. It's all done at the beginning of term. I've ticked it off, I've printed it off, it's in my folder, and I'm ready to teach the whole of my term at the beginning of the half term. And so a really important part of this is creating space around that. Now, I am woefully bad at planning how long things will need. I really underestimate how much time I need. And if you've been to a training of mine, then you will know this, because I start off nice and calm, and then I get faster and faster and faster, because I'm like, the time. And so I always try and fit too much in a small amount of time. And so what I've learned to do with my planning is to allow way more time than I think that I will need, and then think, well, if I have extra time at the end of it, have some little jobs that I can do at the end, or treat myself at the end of it. So yeah, creating space, not underestimating how much time I need, and then blocking in my diary. And then also, some of creating space is creating mental space. So I'm a mom, and also have other responsibilities, have family, parents and cats, and friends, other stuff going on in my life. And so creating mental space is a really important part of the spaciousness that's involved for me. And so when I look at planning it in my diary, I also think about what else is going on around about that time. So are there things to do with the kids? Are there like clubs that they need taking to, or any like parents meetings I need to go to? Are there any things that are happening for them that I need to be aware of? Have I already committed to something else? Like shopping and things like that. And so I really look at my diary and try and make sure that I keep a clear day, so that it's not like I'm not pulled in lots of different directions with other commitments that I have. And also I make life a lot easier for myself at this time. So this means lowering my standards about stuff. So it means deciding that on that day I'm not going to do any tidying up. It also means that on that day I'm not going to spend ages cooking. I am really not a domestic goddess anyway, but like having to make decisions about food and having to plan and having to cook like intricate recipes would just really piss me off. So I on a planning day will either plan a really simple meal, or I will think that we'll get a takeaway or something treaty like that, because then it's one less thing to think about. It's this idea of creating spaciousness, so that your creativity can flow in your planning. Yes, that's creating space. Also thinking about like the responsibilities that you have. Is there a way that you can not do that responsibility, for example? So thinking about your childcare, if you've got children, or if you have another responsibility, can somebody else do that just for this, so that you've got a really big amount of space for you to be creative in. Got a bit of my lunch in my tooth there. That's nice, isn't it? So the next bit, super focus. You can tell I don't edit these videos, can't you? A super focus. Now, I've mentioned it before. I am neurodivergent and I have hyperfocus. So that's sometimes it's sometimes a real skill. like a useful superpower, and sometimes it's not. It's a real detriment. But actually, when it comes to planning, it can be really useful, because once I've decided on my day, I can really like hyper focus on what it is that I'm doing on that day and plan it. But some other tips on how to stay focused in your planning day are to turn off any notifications that you've got. So on your phone or on your computer, don't have your email on in the background. Also setting a timer, that really works for me. But some people think, actually the research shows that our brains work best, generally speaking, with 52 minutes of focused work and then 17 minutes of break time. And that helps us to not get sluggish and brain fog and the rest of it. But you could experiment with a few different like things, like time amounts, what am I saying, durations of time. So do you work best with half an hour slots? Do you work best with 20-minute slots or an hour? Like, what works best for you? Set a timer and be disciplined with yourself. Work for that amount of time, then take a break. Also, don't overcommit and don't plan to do anything else, or like don't arrange a phone call in the middle of the day or any of that kind of stuff. So that will help you to stay focused if you want to try doing this too. So another thing for me about planning and batching is picking the right time. I'm a really sensitive person, and so I am really heavily impacted by pretty much everything. My mood is impacted by my hormones, by my cycle, by my children's state of mood, by the weather, how much sleep I've had, how much food I've had, the moon, anything. It can all decide how my energetics play out. And so I do try and keep these things in mind when I'm planning, when I'm going to have a planning day. So I'll look at my calendar and think, okay, generally I know that at that time of the month I get a bit easily distracted, so I won't do it then. So kind of thinking through, knowing yourself, what works best for you, when would be a good time for you, and then planning it in your diary. So picking the right time is really really important for me anyway. Other people may not be quite so sensitive, so you may be thinking like, what are you on about? I'm intrigued to know, actually, if you're watching this, I would really love to know, are you heavily affected by all the things that I just mentioned? Really like to know that. So my last tip is about making it feel special, and this relates to my love language. So for me, I've already said quality time, making things feel special. And so what I do when I have a planning day is I have a little clean around my office, nothing crazy, just, putting things away so I haven't got piles of books everywhere. I'm a bit of a lover of stationery, and I have 1,000,001 different notebooks and all different coloured pens. Make sure they're all like away and I've got a nice clear surface, because that helps me to think. It really impacts my brain. But I also really like to incorporate things like candles and music and nice snacks and nice tea, and planning a walk, maybe a walk before I do my planning, maybe a walk at the lunchtime. What other things do I do? So making my surroundings really feel nice. And sometimes I may even use a crystal. I might just pick a crystal and set a little intention on the crystal that's like, and I'm not actually particularly knowledgeable about crystals, but I like them as a sort of intention piece. So I might have a crystal and be like, okay, when I hold this crystal, it helps me to be focused, or I hold this crystal and it helps me to be creative. So I might be doing some planning and then think, oh God, I've got no ideas here. So I'll pick up my creativity one, hold it to myself, and maybe say a little mantra or a little intention to myself about creativity, take a few breaths, and then carry on with it. And so really, planning doesn't have to be this really boring, sterile thing that we do at a computer. Actually, you may not even use a computer for yours. I prefer a computer because I like to store it on there, but lots of the kind of pre-thought is all on Post-it notes and notebooks and the aforementioned stationery and 3 million different coloured gel pens. So yeah, it doesn't have to be that sterile. It can be special. It can feel nice. If you like incense, if you like, bring in things that you really love to make it special. So that's how I love my planning days. That's how I have tricked my brain into thinking that it's a really lovely thing. I would really love to know how you feel about planning. Is it something you love? Do you just love it naturally, or is it something you dread? Is it something you struggle with? I'd be really interested to know. So last week I shared a freebie. I'll pop it in the comments again today. If you would find those 3 planning grids useful, the short, medium term ones, I'll pop that in the comments for you to have that freebie. If you'd like to know more about structuring a lesson and you're not really sure how to structure your class, then check out the training Structure for Success. And if you are struggling and you'd like a little bit more help with planning, then I also have an offer of Playful planning hours with me, and that's where I look at your business and we have a little talk about what would work best for you, and we create a plan for your classes that's based around you. We are not cut and paste. We're not all the same. We all have our own special gifts, and I help other yoga teachers realize what their gifts are and help them to formulate a more organized way of moving forwards. So if you're interested in that, send me an email, julia@juliahankins.co.uk. Okay, that's all from me. I hope that's been really helpful. I'd love to know what you think. If you're watching this, a comment or a message is always very much appreciated. And yeah, I hope you have a good week. Next week, I'll be talking all about how you can make your plans work for you, not against you.